Now, many Americans ask how dangerous international policies can suddenly turn up in local government, all seemingly uniform to those in communities across the nation and around the globe. The answer? Meet ICLEI, a nonprofit, private foundation dedicated to helping your mayor implement all of these policies. Originally known as the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, today the group simply calls itself ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. They needed to get that word international out of there. But in 1992, ICLEI was one of the groups instrumental in creating Agenda 21. And as soon as that was done, they made it their mission to implement Agenda 21 worldwide in every city and town in the country and the world, really. And they're having tremendous success. ICLEI now operates in more than 600 cities in all 50 states. The group is shooting for 1,000 member cities in the next 3 years, and each of these cities pay dues to ICLEI to receive its programs. When local governments contract with ICLEI, they agree to implement the Agenda 21 policy of sustainable development. ICLEI, here's just some of the programs that ICLEI provides cities and towns in order to spread their own particular political agenda in the name of community service and environmental protection. They bring in software products and associated training, access to a network of experts, newsletters, conferences, training workshops, toolkits, online resources, case studies, fact sheets, policy, and practice manuals. All that, what that leads to is they're setting up what is your carbon footprint in your community. How much energy should each person use? How much energy should the town use in itself? And then they set goals. They set what will become energy levels that each person should use. That's the purpose of it. And then, there's the big one. Notification of relevant grant opportunities. This is the important one. Money with severe strings attached designed by the NGOs to force Agenda 21 policy in your community. These grants, they helped write it at the federal level. They moved it down into the state level, and then when the states say you have to put in a comprehensive development plan, then and the states provide a grant program to help you do that, which these NGOs help write. Now they come into your community and they say, oh, the state says you have to do a comprehensive development plan. We can help you do that. By the way, we can help you find the money to do it. That's how they operate. And that's the danger. They don't need blue-helmeted soldiers to come in and enforce this. The Sierra Club does it for them. For example, here is a quote from the EPA concerning one of its grant programs and showing you how the strings are attached. Quote, the Sustainable Development Challenge Grant Program is also a step in implementation of Agenda 21, the global plan of action of sustainable development. Now, when I say that the United Nations, that the policies are happening in your local community, coming from the United Nations, again, I'm told I'm crazy. Don't listen to that nut with a tinfoil hat. Isn't true. The EPA says in its own grant program that the purpose of this is to implement Agenda 21. Now, who's lying? Sick of it. In that same document, the EPA says, quote, EPA intends these competitive grants to be a catalyst that challenge communities to invest in a more sustainable future, recognizing that sustainable environmental quality, economic prosperity, and community well-being are inextricably linked. The 3 E's, right there. But keep in mind, your community does not have to be an ICLEI member to be affected by Agenda 21 ICLEI policies. Around the nation, ICLEI partners with other established organizations like the American Planning Association and the International City-County Management Association, or the ICMA. And then there's the Renaissance Planning Group, and hundreds more like these. They work hand in hand with other groups like the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National Governors Association, the National League of Cities, the National Association of County Administrators, and more that your local elected representatives belong to. These are the people making policy. These are the people your local officials trust to be mainstream. These are the true enemies of freedom in America. And that's how these policies quickly spread across the nation as enforced regulations. And here are some of the results of these efforts. Across the nation, as I've mentioned, state legislatures are passing laws requiring cities and towns to establish these comprehensive development plans. They do that after the NGOs help them write that. These plans include high-density urban development areas, controls on energy and water, controls on transportation, making it more difficult to drive your cars, perhaps forcing the acceptance of light rail trains. These laws are now being used as a weapon to force sustainable development at a rapid pace across the nation. And here's some of what each of you can now expect, and probably have already experienced, from these plans that your city fathers say will just make things better. One of the most popular tools now to control energy use, right out of the ICLEI plan, are the energy audits and building reviews. They establish quotas for electrical use and for heating and cooling pumps and water use. That means that government bureaucrats may well come into your home or your office building and determine the amount of potential energy you should have. You will be given a list of recommendations. They love that word. Recommendations, voluntary, kumbaya. They're necessary in order to be in compliance. These may include the need for a new roof, new energy efficient appliances, new windows, etc. In Oakland, California, the City Council did just these things. And as a result, the average cost to every single homeowner to comply was at least $35,000. And if you don't comply, you will be fined and possibly unable to sell your home until you do. But it's all voluntary. As groups like ICLEI and the American Planning Association guide the process, voluntary guidelines announced to reduce energy use quickly become mandatory regulations. There's now a goal. We've got to meet those cuts in our carbon footprint. It becomes a goal. It becomes a fanaticism. So how do they control energy use? Well, here's one way. Across the nation, power companies, in partnership with government planners, are forcing the use of smart meters. These meters contain RFID chips. The technology enables the power company to not only keep track of how much power that you're using, they can control, regulate, and ration your use of that electricity. They will set the temperature in your home. If they decide that you're using too much hot water for your showers and washing machines, or too much air conditioning, your electricity will automatically be turned off during peak usage times. And let me tell you this. The reason that they have to install the smart meters is because as they're bringing the wind and solar power onto the grid, it's unstable. And when we reach peak levels, maybe the wind stops blowing, maybe the sun goes down. And they've got to cut back to save the grid. That's why they're putting the smart meters on, because they're using a stupid source of electricity instead of building coal plants and nuclear plants that are stable and don't take up massive amounts of land and give us actual energy. But that's not good enough. They cut it off from you because the goal is to cut down on your energy use. There's now growing evidence that smart meters are causing medical problems for some of those who are affected by the radiation. This is leading to growing opposition to the meters, and there is now across the country, there are beginning to be provisions for people to be able to opt out. But up till now, for those who protest that this is a violation of your private property rights and freedom of choice, people have been told that their only choice is you either take the meter or you have no electricity come into your home. Naperville, Illinois, where 16 residents refused the meters out of 275 in the neighborhood where they were targeted. When they started to refuse to take them, the answer by the government of the city of Naperville was to send police escorts out with the meter installers. There is no freedom under sustainable development, and it just keeps getting worse. There are now policies being advocated to place taxes on the use of toilet paper, on the number of miles that you drive in your car, and it's not just at the pump. This is a meter in your car. And they will determine how much you drive and tax you for it. And they want to put them on plastic bags. In most places, they're just banning plastic bags. Next on the agenda is to, quote, radically abandon the flush toilet. They call it, quote, one of the world's most destructive habits. Shame on you. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has made a donation of $3 million to 8 universities to reinvent the flush toilet. I believe that we should work to reinvent the computer so it no longer accepts Microsoft software. The EPA is now providing funding to non-governmental groups to run training programs for people to photograph and report neighbors who may be committing crimes against the environment. Last year, Obama signed Executive Order 13575 to create the White House Rural Council. The Council is a list of the most aggressive agencies and departments of the U.S. government. It will bring an army of regulators into rural areas to completely control every decision of land use, farming, and development. Farmers who have been feeding America for over 200 years will not be able to make a single decision without permission and massive paperwork from bureaucrats from at least 25 agencies. Won't be just satisfied, well, this one I satisfied, maybe 13 or 14 more that you have to satisfy. And as I said, the only result will be food shortages and higher prices. Several cities are now taking grant money to create a plug-in development program using your tax dollars to assure the city is ready for electric cars. Even GM isn't ready for electric cars. They just shut down the line for Volt. Nobody wants them. But this is the interesting thing. The program openly admits that it's all necessary because otherwise people won't buy plug-in vehicles. You know, at least under the free enterprise system, the oil companies paid for their own filling stations. And that was after free Americans made a free choice of what kind of car they wanted to buy. Well, welcome to the utopia of sustainable developments. This is Big Brother at its worst. And it's planned, controlled, and enforced by your local leaders and representatives in partnership with groups like ICLEI, an organization whose vice president, Harvey Rubin, said, quote, individual rights will have to take a back seat to the collective. Let me ask you this. Would any of your elected officials openly admit to enforcing communism in your community? No, of course not. Then why are they so eager to be in partnership with an organization which does? The United States is not a global village run by elders who hand down the rules from on high. We are a nation of individuals whose rights are supposed to be protected and guaranteed by the representatives that we elect. We demand accountability from them. However, global forces which do not accept the unique American form of government sneak behind the curtain, avoiding controversy and honest debate. The only possible result can be the tyranny over a powerless electorate stripped of their rights, their property, and their self-determination. Global warming has been the excuse for the hysteria, but true science is now showing that to be the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on humankind. So, there is no need for these dire policies to cut back our carbon footprint by forcing us to lock away land and resources and live in high-density cracker boxes. We all want a clean environment. However, what we are objecting to here, what we are fighting, is not environmental protection, but the process that is being used in its name. There is nothing local or innocent or normal about it. Again, go through it one more time. It starts at as an international agenda created by ideological zealots working hand in hand through massive international gatherings sponsored through the United Nations. At those massive meetings, documents are carefully prepared for the signatures of leaders of every nation, including the United States. Once signed, the bureaucrats of our government use documents like Agenda 21 as a blueprint for legislation and regulations. To write that legislation, the bureaucrats work hand in hand with the same NGOs who wrote it in the first place. And then these UN-sanctioned NGOs like the Sierra Club and the Nature Conservancy team up with groups like ICLEI and the American Planning Association to apply pressure and make sure local city councils and county supervisors toe the line. The resulting non-elected boards, councils, and regional governments appointed by an oligarchy answerable to no one is the perfect definition of a Soviet, a centrally controlled economy. And ladies and gentlemen, I assure you, we cannot restore our unique American republic if our communities are little Soviets. Nor can we protect the environment if our economy is destroyed and free men are unable to make choices other than survival in a sustainabilist tyranny. The sustainabilists are using our carbon footprint as a measure of our guilt. And one fact is sure. If you have no carbon footprint, you are dead. Elected officials can no longer play ignorant about the origins of their policies. America is dying while they're denying. Their elected duty is to represent the people and protect them from these piranhas that are devouring our way of life. To stop it, you and I must take action now and understand that the main battle to stop Agenda 21 and sustainable development is not being fought in Congress, but right here on the local level. We must stand up and protest at every city council and county commissioner meeting, at every planning board, and every consensus meeting. Fight the creation of non-elected councils, commissions, or boards because they can and they will be used as a weapon against your ability to deal and reason with your local government. And above all, refuse federal or state money or new sustainable programs and get rid of the old ones. And if ICLEI and the American Planning Association are running things in your town, and they are, throw them out. Yeah. Stop payment of dues, disband anything that they have built, and start looking for some high-grade tar and feathers. And if your elected representatives continue to ignore you while playing footsie with those leading this tyranny, then you must force them out of office. Your survival depends on it. Absolutely. Nameless, faceless bureaucrats wielding power in the back rooms, untouchable and unseen, is not freedom. The sustainabilists now haunt the upper levels of the federal government, our state houses, and our city council chambers. And in these very dangerous times, it is easy to despair over our nation's future. They have achieved many of their goals, but they have not yet won. Their whole agenda is built on a house of cards that stands only when you are ignorant and compliant. And their arrogance and their impatience to force the policy into place is resulting in a stir of the American people. We are beginning to move the rock of freedom uphill. We are on the threshold of great change because the word is quickly spreading about Agenda 21. After 19 years of issuing warnings about Agenda 21, finally, opposition is being heard. In the last 13 months, the following communities have taken action to revoke their contracts with ICLEI. It started a year ago, January, in Carroll County, Maryland. Then Amador County, California. Then Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Then Edmond, Oklahoma. Then Las Cruces, New Mexico. Then Spartanburg, South Carolina. Then Albemarle County, Virginia, the home of Thomas Jefferson. Then Plantation, Florida. then James City County, Virginia, where America basically started, at Jamestown, then Lexington, Virginia. We can now also add Carter, Massachusetts, Pinellas County, Florida, Garland, Texas, Sarasota County, Florida, Abington, Virginia, Clallam County, Washington, Chatham County, North Carolina, Monmouth County and Somerset County in New Jersey, and most recently, in the last week, College Station, Texas, the home of Texas A&M, have now voted to not renew their ICLEI membership. In fact, we believe, we haven't got all the details in, but we believe that at least 54 communities have pulled out of ICLEI since January 2001, while only 17 have joined them. That is a net reduction of 34 communities. And it's only the beginning. They've all taken a first step in ending Agenda 21 in their community, but, and I warn them, it is only a first step. Just because you get rid of ICLEI doesn't mean you've accomplished anything but fired a shot across their bow. Now you got to get rid of the rest of the policies and everything that they've accomplished. But it goes on. In Bonner County, Idaho, County Commissioner Cornell Razor is succeeding in establishing a property rights council as an official arm of the county government. It will oversee all legislation coming before the county commission and will determine if it violates private property rights. And that is an idea that's quickly spreading across the country. In Florida, the state legislature has passed and the governor has signed legislation to repeal smart growth legislation.
All right.
That means that now counties are free of the state mandates to move on, and they can repeal them or not. It's their decision. This is landmark legislation. Now, here in the state of Wisconsin, we thought we had a bill that would do exactly the same thing. But we've learned recently that the bill wasn't good enough. It was Assembly Bill 303. And it is not going to be passed. And that's not a bad thing, because the senator who issued it in the first place has agreed to work with us to write a better bill to accomplish what we hope to accomplish. In New Hampshire, 2 pieces of legislation have been introduced there. One of them says that no state or local government can put any money whatsoever, dues or otherwise, into the pockets of ICLEI. In other words, you can't join ICLEI. The other piece of legislation, which really excites me, is that to protect private property rights, no federal, state, or local agent can come on private property without the written permission of that property owner. And if the property owner doesn't answer their request, that stands as a no. And just this week, I've been working with Senator Rand Paul's office. He has introduced a bill, Senate Bill 2122, the Defense of Environment and Property Protection Act. And what this bill does, it is to rein in the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers so they can't use mud puddles anymore to call them navigatable waterways.
All right.
And that bill also carries the same language about the written permission of agents coming on the private property. And several other things it provides. And this coming Tuesday, I have helped organize a conference call of over 1,000 Tea Party leaders across the country with Senator Paul to talk about how we can build support for this bill.
All right.
And finally, on January 13th of this year, the Republican National Committee unanimously passed a resolution entitled Exposing United Nations Agenda 21.
All right.
And I can tell you that is already helping us as people go before Republican elected officials who are saying, I don't know. They're saying, wait a minute, your party passed this. And they go, really? You take a look at, well, let me know a little more about this. That's helping. I have now created a petition to House Speaker Boehner that says you are the highest Republican elected official in this country. It is your duty to support the policies of your party. You need to support this. And so we're putting that out. So things are beginning to happen. Revolution against sustainable development is taking place in every corner of this nation. In a panic, ICLEI is now rushing to cleanse its website of any mention of the United Nations.
Good deal.
My favorite, the American Planning Association, which I believe is really more dangerous than ICLEI, has organized a boot camp to train its people how to counter our efforts. Says an American Planning Association memo, it says, quote, "Given the heightened scrutiny of planners by some members of the public, what is said or not said is especially important to building support for planning." End quote. So, they have dropped the main words of Agenda 21 and are replacing them with George Orwell's style of newspeak designed to lull you to sleep. Here are just a few of the words they are now telling their people, don't use these words. These are just, they just see red when you use these words. Facilitate, regionalism, smart growth, stakeholders, sustainability, council of governments, eminent domain, and mixed-use development. Just a very few of them. And this is the one I love. They caution, quote, "Avoid talking about or linking plans and planning with regulatory matters." My friends, planning is nothing but regulatory matters. Of course, they aren't changing the policies, they're just changing the words. Eventually they're going to have to invent new words because it's going to run out of others. The fact is, our opponents are trying their best to ridicule us and paint our movement as extremists. It's not working. We are getting stronger every day. For the first time since I started down the road to expose Agenda 21, I believe we will succeed in crushing it. You know, recently I watched the film Robin Hood, starring Russell Crowe, and I was struck by the similarities that were depicted between England of the 13th century and today's America. It was a time of serfs who had no rights, no property, and only poverty in their future. It was a time when the king owned everything from land to livestock. And it was a time when tax collectors could literally confiscate everything you had in the name of the king, leaving you with virtually nothing. The people attempted to rise up, demanding that the king give them rights from which they could be guaranteed the ability to benefit from the fruits of their own labor. The people of the 13th century England knew what they had to do if ever they were going to be free. The slogan under which they organized was, "Rise and rise again until lambs become lions." Today, as we face an ever-growing tyranny by a Congress and a president and all elected officials on every level who ignore you, lie to you, and deny their actions that you can plainly see, Americans, for the first time in our history, face the same evil those Englishmen faced so long ago. And so today, I appeal to you to take that same resolve. Today, begin that effort to rise up and continue to fight again and again at city council and county supervisor meetings. Take their ridicule and return the fight again. Stand up to these self-proclaimed stakeholders and outsider NGOs, the carpetbaggers of our day. Reach out to your neighbors and help them see how the threat that Agenda 21 is to their freedom. Never give in. Rise and rise again until lambs become lions. Thank you.
Tom,
Yeah.
my name is Jay Verholtz. I'm with the Foundation for Common Sense, and one of the things that you illuminated here tonight is regional government. In the state of Wisconsin, we actually have 7 regional planning commissions. One of them is the entirety of Dane County. I know you're going to be there tomorrow in Madison. That's why we refer to that area as 64 square miles surrounded by reality. However, the last administration, although regional planning commissions are totally unelected, they're appointed by the governor, the last administration actually made regional planning commissions a local unit of government, totally unelected. How would you attack this problem?
Well, you got to get rid of the elected officials you have now, put them together, and have some come in and change them. And I think that's the only thing you can do, because they're entrenched. You have to, of course, I'm talking, particularly on the local level, which makes it a little bit easier to go after. Not a whole lot, but you get in the state level. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to get a broom and clean house. And people are beginning across the country to rise up to this, beginning to understand what's going on, and they're not able to hide as well as they did. They're terrified of us, and because it's all built on a house of cards. But it's going to take. This didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to be taken care of overnight. People are always asking me for the silver bullet. What do? We get rid of this, and it's all over. We can restore America. Well, it can't. It's going to take years to get this done. And we have to start, and I think probably the best way to start, you say, well, how impossible it is to get rid of these elected officials. Well, you want a silver bullet? It's called precinct, Captain. Begin to organize one precinct at a time. Amen. Then you can, or I don't know if you're broken down in wards here or not, that's the way they are in Ohio, but then take over a ward, and I guarantee you, that you will control the elections happen there if you do it. But it takes a long time to do that. You don't do it 6 months before an election. You do it now for the next round of elections. Prepare. That's the only way you're going to clean house and get it done.
Agenda 21 started, I believe, in the UN.
Yes.
Where did those ideas come from? And the second part of my question is, what do you think of the GN and the UN in general? Where did those ideas come from that they came to the UN?
Well, again, the process here, and please, do not miss this, because this is the most important thing that I have said tonight. The non-governmental organizations, these are the stormtroopers for the UN. These are private groups. There are hundreds of them, thousands of them. I've seen a list. The thing was that thick. They cover every aspect of things. The National Education Association is an NGO. Planned Parenthood is an NGO. These are where these ideas come from, and then they're sanctioned by the UN. Then they work in the back rooms to put these ideas together. These are their personal agendas that they work into international policy, and that's where it comes from. What do I think of the United Nations? Get the United States out of it now, and get it out of the United States.
I have a comment. With the electric cars, Chicago has just instituted if you have a parking garage, you have to have the plug-ins, and they're right up front, and I just park my truck there anyway, but that's gone through, and my question is to you, with Congress and what's going on with fracking and natural gas, do you have a comment about, I know that they're trying to stop fracking across the United States.
Here we have an opportunity. We've found that we have an unlimited supply in almost every single state of shale oil. And, they have developed new ways of getting at it. And it does not hurt the environment. They'll tell you it pollutes the water underneath and all that kind of thing. What the environmentalists do is they paint a picture of the way things used to be. Used to be drilling oil were miles and miles of oil derricks. And today, one derrick can be 10 pumps, 10 wells. Their footprint is nothing. It ain't nothing like windmills. What's the problem here? By the way, the Audubon Society absolutely hates those windmills because they are just killing birds by the millions. There's nothing good about these things. They don't produce any energy, and they're killing the environment. Yeah.
I have a question. There's a lot of powerful lobby groups, like the National Association of Realtors and National Association of Home Builders, the Farm Bureau. Do you know where they stand on this? Are they taking action?
Really interesting you asked that, because when I talked to Senator Paul's office the other day about this bill, they told me that where they're getting pushback, their term on Capitol Hill for rejection of the bill, is coming from the Farm Bureau and the Home Builders Associations and all the usual suspects. And when she started telling me that, I just got this feeling of deja vu. Because back before we started fighting Agenda 21, we were fighting the environmental movement in itself. We were fighting these environmental practices that were beginning particularly to move out into the West to take, stop the timber industry and all that. And there used to be, I take some time to tell you this so you understand, there used to be an organization called Alliance for America, and it sponsored what was called the Fly-In for Freedom. Once a year, victims of all these things, people in the timber industry, ranching industry, mining industry, property owners, would fly into Washington, they would go to a one-day conference, and then the next day they would cover Capitol Hill knocking on doors and trying to lobby to get these things down. As time went by, a huge rift came in between these industry organizations and property rights organizations, because property rights people provided the ground troops, the industry provided the money. They became disinterested in protecting private property rights, only interested in, let's lobby for this bill to get this little piece here that helps us survive. Maybe hurts our competition. We can make money from it. And so this huge rift grew. I had spent several $1,000s to expose an organization called the Religious Partnership for the Environment. This is a pagan organization out of the United Nations that's designed to teach your pastors how to preach green philosophy from the pulpit. And they are nothing but a government or an NGO, United Nations NGO. And next thing I knew, at the next Fly-In for Freedom, they were about to have the Religious Partnership for the Environment on the program. But there weren't any property rights speakers on the program. And I learned of this, and there were 3 people who were in charge of the Fly-In, or having their final meeting to put the schedule together. And I sent them, back in those days we did action alerts by fax, and I sent them a fax with a sledgehammer alert of our organization that I was about to issue, telling all of our people what these guys were about to do. And I said, you've got 20 minutes to get this off the program, or I'm launching this alert. 15 minutes later they said, don't do that. They didn't do it. But this rift was created. And now Senator Paul told me that these organizations that they ought to be here, they ought to be supporting us. The Farm Bureau, come on. The home builders, they can't build homes with these policies. They have some wimpy little bill that only attracts some little piece of it over here. Here we've got an opportunity to get a bill to cut the EPA off at the knees and stop them from doing what they're doing. The victims, they're putting people in jail on wetlands violations, serving prison terms, and these guys want to play footsie again with some little bill. That's why we're putting together the conference call, so that we can, it's not that we're going to push back against the Greens so much in this particular thing. How do we push back against the Farm Bureau and the Home Builders Associations and so forth to get them to stop opposing this bill? So that's one of the things we're going to do. Realtor associations, when I was in Baton Rouge recently and spoke there, one of the gentlemen who drove me around there was the head of their local Realtors Association, who was going to the National Realtors Association. He had their ear, they were beginning to listen, and we've got a great opportunity now to bring them on board against Agenda 21. So,
I've got 2 questions, and the first one is for the crowd. What politician in Wisconsin was most instrumental in bringing Smart Growth Agenda 21 right here in this state? Okay, good. I won't do any politicking for or against him, but I just want to make that little bit of information known generally. The second thing is, I just saw a wonderful little video clip of Newt Gingrich and how he's against Agenda 21, and as president the first day, this, that, he's going to, but I seem to remember, maybe you can help my memory here, Tom. Didn't he hook up with Alvin Toffler And hasn't he supported international organizations that usurp the sovereignty of this great United
Did a
States?
fantastic set of commercials with Nancy Pelosi on stopping global warming. Yeah.
So, is this part of his born-again agenda, or do you think it's the same old
Let
milk?
me give you a little insight here. As the candidates have been traveling on the stump for the presidential campaign, they have been pummeled with questions about Agenda 21.
Good.
Yes.
I own my house outright. I have no debt on it. It is completely paid off. I live in the city of Two Rivers. I don't live near any wetlands. I don't live near any big, forests or farmlands or anything. So, as it would pertain to me with property rights, what rights do I have under this agenda as a property owner who has no lien, no debt against my property, to keep unwanted people from my property?
It's interesting that you asked that. I have been telling people when they go to their elected officials to ask one question. What can I do on my property without your permission? Name one thing I can do on my property without your permission. Of course, the answer is nothing. There are no property rights in this country today. And even though you own it outright, you're still paying taxes on it. You quit paying the taxes, you're dead meat. And plus the fact that if they decide, no matter how much of a deed you can show and paid off, if they decide that they need that land for whatever reason, or you've got a wetlands on it because it rained yesterday, or whatever other reason, an endangered species on it, then it's gone. And there's nothing, according to all this, there's nothing you can do about it. So you have no rights. And that's what we've got to push back and do.
Take your land, or do they have to give you a fair market value for the land?
Here's how that works. According to the Fifth Amendment, they do. But here's how that works. Once they have declared that they're taking that land, your property now has no value. Now, under Rand Paul's bill, one of the provisions of that is that when they have to take land, they have got to pay you double the price for it to make up for that.
On the Fox River, west of here, they have got a plan to confiscate all the property and make it a wetlands for us people. And
For our enjoyment.
pardon me?
For our enjoyment.
Yeah, so I think we all have to wake up. It's happening closer than what we think.
I'm a supervisor from a small town north of here called Stockbridge. We had a town board that was promoting smart growth. The citizens didn't want it. We got rid of them and put a new board in. But the reason I'm really standing up is that I went down to speak in favor of 303 and have been following it very carefully, and was told today that 2 reasons it didn't pass. One was the Realtors Association in this state and the town association. So if you have town officials that we all belong to that association, they lobbied against our right to determine whether we want smart growth or not.
That includes Waukesha.
One of the worst offenders of this on the national level is the National Conference of Mayors. And they are totally sustainable development. And again, all those other associations I mentioned, they are all in lockstep with this stuff.
I'm the publisher and editor of Reality News, and I just wrote a piece regarding how many are farmers in here? Anybody? I just wrote a piece about you guys, and unfortunately, it's almost to the end of the line. The collectivists are on your doorstep. The windmills, and the pattern's always the same. They give you money on the front end, ethanol subsidies, $5,000 per windmill, or for homeowners, the loans that they were giving, and then they crash the market, and they make you poor because you're depending on that. Tom, they've done it to the real estate market. You know they're going after the farmers, and they're trying to get rid of all of the family-owned farms in this country and get at the food supply. Where are we in that process, Tom, and how much time do we have for these folks?
Well, we're at the very beginning. They've been putting this in place for more than 20 years, but Agenda 21 was a culmination of ideas that have been out there already. They're putting it together. They've got an 18, 19-year head start on us. They're totally entrenched. They've got massive amounts of money. They've got, all the power, everything. But on the other hand, so did global warming. Did you ever see an issue that looked like an absolute done deal because it had everything going for it until somebody hacks into the emails of the perpetrators of it and showed that they were all lying about it, and all of a sudden it just collapsed. I've never seen anything collapse so fast in my life. You still hear about it, you still see it. It had a lot of momentum behind it. But I get these reports from England every day. It's a dead deal in England now and in most of Europe. They're throwing these things out by the six-pack, these regulations. It'll come here soon. Of course, these guys never miss a beat. They just jumped over to diversity and working on endangered species and that sort of thing.
Isn't the renewable energy portfolio standard like the key to getting this reversed for the farmers?
I'm sorry?
The renewable energy portfolio standard, to get the windmills shut down because that's really where the property rights.
Yeah, but step by step, what we've established at this point is a beachhead. We're on Utah Beach. We're moving inland, and they're firing everything they've got at us, but we're on the beach, and that's where we are now. And we got a long way to go, and I don't want to mislead you there because I want to give you good news, and I love to leave you with the feeling that this is not hopeless. It is not hopeless, but I believe, just like global warming, it's a house of cards. It's all based on the global warming thing. So it's a house of cards, and as we begin to get a couple little things tumble over here, I think you'll see other things tumbling faster. It'll happen that way. It's like a great big tower falling over. But we got to get that started, and but we are getting it started. For the first time, I can't emphasize this enough, in 18, 19 years of doing this, I would call elected officials and talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. I have them coming to me now. And that is huge. That's a turnaround. It's not all of them. It's a minority, but it's a start. And we have gentlemen, like the gentleman over here, working on it. He's there. He's involved. I had a lady last night who is a commissioner or supervisor and stood up and is doing things. These are patriots. These are heroes. But the most important thing is that you have got to give them ground cover. You can't let them go out there by themselves, one individual here or there. He's going to get his head cut off, and then he's not going to want to do it anymore. You have got to be there for them and give them the atmosphere, give them the ground cover to do it. They win one victory, they'll go for another one. Victory feels good, and that's what you've got to do. Do not let them stand there by themselves. You've got to be there for them.
Thanks for coming tonight. That was an excellent presentation. What this gentleman said up here you're on Stockbridge Town Board, I believe you said, about the Towns Association, State Towns Association holding up that legislation. That's exactly true. That is what happened. Second point, just in my office today in the state capitol, a bill came across my desk which I promptly threw into my recycling pile because based on who the author was. But as you're talking, I heard a term you used called benefit corporations.
Yeah.
That's what it was about.
Yeah.
And so it was introduced just in the last day or two, and I saw it
So I
across
can add
my desk
Wisconsin
today.
to my list. Huh?
So yeah, I didn't
I'm
read
sorry.
it. Like I said, maybe it's some other benefit corporation thing, but I suspect, based on the authors, that it's what you mentioned.
Yeah.
Third thing, in the last couple weeks, in Fond du Lac here, I don't know much about the smart meters, but they're being installed as we speak in Fond du Lac. One's been put into my house, in fact, and I don't know much about them. I've had one person in particular in town here, to her credit, has been very persistent. I think the emails are up to 14 now. My staffer told me today, and I haven't had time to dig into it yet.
Go on the internet and Google smart meters, and you'll see all the opposition.
But
all the arguments and so
I
forth.
certainly will be poking into that a little bit
Yeah.
more here as our session winds down. So I just wanted to say thanks for coming.
Thank you. Okay. The last thing, let me give you 2 shameless commercials. out on the table out there, I have my book, Now Tell Me I Was Wrong. This is a book, it's a collection of articles I wrote over the last 15 years on all these issues, on the environmental movement, the UN, on the education transformation we went through, smart cards and ID cards and illegal immigration, all that stuff is in it. Articles I wrote, I was ignored, laughed at, whatever, when I wrote them. People asked why the Tea Party, why the anger, why is people rising up? Well, the reason is because the very issues that I was writing about then are now in place, and you're responding to that. You're mad about it. So if you want to read some history, read where it all came from and the root of it all, that's what I have in the book. I began to see editorials in the last year or so that looked like I wrote them. And so I came up with the headline, Now Tell Me I Was Wrong. And so I'd be happy to sell it to you and happy to sign it for you, and it's there. Now, the most important thing, just yesterday, we announced, as we've done this for all these years, everything we've produced has been, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. This is dangerous, this is coming to you. Trying to get people to listen to all the DVDs we had, all the articles we wrote, everything we put out was based on that. About 6 months ago or so, maybe a little longer than that, I started getting notes from people saying, okay, I get it, what do I do about it? I said, gee, I don't know, I never got that far before. Well, we went to work, and we have produced, it just came out yesterday, this is the only one in existence, by the way, I've actually put together, the Stop Agenda 21 Action Kit. This is the atom bomb to go after him. I quizzed people. I talked to activists who were in the front lines, like you, and the most courageous people who stand. It's easy for me to lob bombs from my office. You guys are staring these guys in the face. But I asked, what do you need? I went to some of the best experts, the people I'm privileged to work with, and we put this together. And let me just tell you what's in it. It has 2 DVD sets in it. One of them is 4 presentations, one by me, basically what I've said here tonight. Michael Kaufman, who is the man who created the map that you've all seen. He connects the dots to other issues. Another one by Don Casey, who goes into great detail on the rural issue. And Michael Chapman, who used to be in Minnesota with a group called EdWatch with Michelle Bachmann, and he connects the dots between Agenda 21 and the education curriculum. And I've traveled with Michael many times. I'll be with him on Saturday, as a matter of fact. And I have heard him, when the rest of us were talking about smart growth and Wildlands Project and all that, people going, yeah. When Michael got up and started connecting the dots to education, I could see all the light bulbs going on. And it's brilliant how he does this. And it's on here. The other one is 2 workshops. One by Beverly Eckman, who is an education writer, but she is an expert on how to bust up consensus meetings. And she does an 8-hour workshop on it. We've got an hour of her on the workshop here, but we also have her manual to go with it is in the kit, so you got all the details. The other one is a workshop by Dan Byfield of the American Stewards for Liberty, who worked with Fred Kelly Grant to create a process called consensus that is being used across the country. It was a process used to stop the Trans-Texas Corridor. So he does a workshop on that. It's a very useful tool. I've also got a manual by him in here. There is a manual that covers all the details, the history, where this came from, conservation easements and why they're bad, regional governments and why they're bad, how they operate. And it's got here by Michael Chapman on education. It's got an article by a lady by the name of Madeline Cosman, who unfortunately is no longer with us. She was a doctor talking about sustainable medicine, which now is known as Obamacare. And you get all the details there. You Google sustainable medicine, you'll find over 5 million references to it. It has an intense section in here on ICLEI, an intense section in here on global warming and how all that's come about. That's in the manual. And then there's the workbook. And this is the heart of the matter. The workbook has things on how to fight back. It's got actual sample legislation. It's got, most important, it's got pass-outs, things you can, the reason it's got a spiral binding, you put it right on the copier, and you can make copies of these pass-outs. You don't have to make up your own anymore. We've got them on here on several issues. And then it's got a side-by-side with, by Henry Lamb, who is really our godfather, the guy who discovered all this. Unfortunately, he's very ill now. But he went through actual comprehensive development plans and showed how they are connected to Agenda 21. There's 2 of them in here, and you can look at those and look at your own comprehensive plan for your community and find those similarities and be able to point that out. There are other documents in here. So all those are in there, and interesting, we've put together a CD. Both of these manuals are complete in the CD. You can put these in your computer, and you can begin to print out the handouts and stuff like that directly from your computer. And finally, you talk to elected officials that say, well, I never heard of anybody being hurt by any of these things. Here is a manual called Shattered Dreams that has stories of victims and how this has affected them and how they've been put in jail and so forth about this. So this has everything in it I could think of. It is a living document because once you purchase it, you can, whenever we update it, you'll get a free update to it. We'll have a space on our website, or we'll send it out by email. We'll decide how to do that. But you'll be able to update it. So everything we ever learn from this point forward, you'll get. And you'll also get a free subscription to my online newsletter, the DeWeese Report. I'll be part of it. It's $195. I know that's a lot of money, but there's a lot of stuff here, and it's everything you need if you want to go on the front lines and fight it. So the Stop Agenda 21 Action Kit, there it is.
How when can we get those?
There are order forms out here. Just fill it out, send it to me. We'll send it back to you.